We have to be extremely careful we don't promise things that are not realistic. He says, pesticides can save a few individual trees but not a forest. They are too expensive and they'd kill all sorts of other organisms. Breeding beetle-resistant trees would take decades, even with modern genetics. And even then, the beetles might rapidly adapt and break through the resistance. For the moment, most research, from the genome work to the beetle in Carol's bucket, is aimed at simply improving our ability to predict insect outbreaks. No one can give you a certain answer about where the bark beetle will be in 5 years, says Bowman. That is the biggest issue. If you can get to a forest soon enough, when beetle populations are still relatively small, you may control the infestation. At least that's the theory that's being tested in Alberta, which has become the front line in the battle to stop the beetles' march across the continent. To save a forest, you have to cut a lot of trees to ensure that beetles have nowhere else to go. In many parts of British Columbia and the western United States, the infestation is slowing on its own. In some places because there aren't many trees left to kill. But in Alberta it's begun more recently. Alberta has about 50 million acres of pines, far fewer than British Columbia, but they are in vitally important areas at the sources of mountain rivers that feed the prairies and cities below. If those forests are devastated and unshaded, snow will melt faster and rivers will crest earlier before the dry season, when people and ecosystems need the water most. To save a forest, you have to cut a lot of trees. The only way to stall the beetles is to ensure that they have nowhere else to go. Alberta's long-term strategy is to log or burn most patches of forests that are dominated by mature pine trees and thus highly susceptible to the beetles. Its short-term strategy is to fight the beetle tree by tree. In the past decade, it has spent more than $320 million US on beetle management. The aim, says Erica Samis, a senior forest manager at Alberta's Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Resource Development, is to limit the beetles' spread along the eastern front of the Rocky Mountains and east into the boreal forest. Foresters hand fell at a cluster of 3 or more trees that are green but actively infested, sometimes a whole stand. If there are enough vulnerable trees within 3 miles, they burn or chip the trees to kill the beetles. In the area around Grand Prairie, where the beetles had never been seen until winds carried them over the Rockies in 2006, foresters have cut down 200,000 trees just since 2012. Carol likens beetle management to paying down a large balance on a credit card. What you have to do is hit more of the beetle than what is growing annually. He says, you've got to get past the interest into the principle. But when the population gets so big that you can't even get partway through the interest, you are host. So far, Alberta has managed year by year to make a dent in the principle. At least in most areas, parts of the province have been designated holding zones, where the government is just trying to keep beetle numbers steady. Other parts have been deemed a lost cause. There are just too many beetles. If foresters can't remove at least 80% of infested trees, they figure there's no point in doing anything. As Samis puts it, you're peeing into the wind. What lies ahead in the battle for North American forests? Alberta is burning its felled dead trees in huge piles set alight during the soggy weeks of early spring. If you were to slice into one of those logs, you'd see a lovely blue stain seeping through the yellow wood. It's a telltale sign of a tree that was killed by mountain pine beetles, and it has generated a cottage industry in siding, cabinets, and furniture made with the blue-toned lumber. Throughout the western U.S., you will find the beetle kill pine adjoining homes, stores, and restaurants. My house in Colorado has a ceiling built of beetle kill planks. Idaho, a Chinook salmon spawns in the Yankee Fork of the Salmon River, where dead lodgepole pines line the banks. The trees are vital to the threatened salmon. By slowing snowmelt, they keep streams cool into spring and limit excess sleet. Wyoming, a camera trapped near Yellowstone National Park catches a grizzly bear stealing white bark pine nuts from a squirrel's cache. The nuts are an important food for the bears, a threatened species. South Dakota, a beetle effigy made with beetle kill wood warms a joyful crowd at a winter festival in Custer. Dealing with the beetle is a running battle, says forester Frank Carroll. It's the one time of the year we get to feel we have the upper hand.